Hello, everybody, and welcome to Podfluxxx, episode number 63. That's what it says scrolling across there at the bottom. Rick, what's up, man?
Not much. Crazy thunderstorms heading to Texas, and they'll be gone in like 5 minutes. So it's all good.
Great thing. We went to the beach the other night, and I was gang assaulted by horse flies.
Ugh.
And I am paying the consequences severely for that in the days that followed. So anyway, there's our happy talk, small talk section. You ready to get kicked off here?
Sure.
All right. For those who have not been paying attention lately, we've been doing a deep dive into the first season, Lucha Underground. We've gone through business questions, production questions, salary questions, and we're getting into a bunch of the wrestling also. So we're not just hitting on one little thing match after match, and we're kind of diving into everything as far as what the dynamics and the atmospheres and everything felt like. So where we left off last week, Rick, we planted the seed, or the tease, if you will, for the crew. That's yourself, Mr. Cisco, and how do you say B-Boy's Lucha Underground name? Is it Bale or Bael?
Bale.
Bale?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you bailed him out a time or two, but anyway, we're getting into your tag team matches and your six-man or trios matches. So the one I wanted to start with was, and I swear to you, I had it a second ago. I was literally like, oh, there it is. We're going to start with, it's you, Cisco and Bell against Argenis, Superfly, and Aerostar. These are three AAA guys, correct?
Yes.
And I know we I know we spoke limitedly about this match a little bit in the past.
Yeah.
I think this is a really good time for you to get into it. You guys picked up the win here, but this was an important match for you and for Lucha Underground and for AAA, and I would like for you to tell us why.
It was going to highlight what Lucha Underground truly was. That's how I took the match, right? Like, to a lot of people, I guess it was just a cold match, just to have. But for all of us in the match, the AAA guys included, this was going to be like a real test, because this was going to be, like a collision of the worlds colliding, I guess, because of my style of wrestling and their style of wrestling. And how we can highlight that on American television. So it was going to be a real struggle for everybody. I kind of look at it like, like once Eddie Guerrero started getting going in like 96, 97, WCW, he went out there to prove that he was just like the best all around wrestler, instead of just being like the best from Mexico or one of the best from Mexico. He was having matches with everybody, but they were like, kind of like 5-star masterpieces that he was having while getting himself over and getting the other guy over, and really like showcasing his abilities. So that I kind of took that mindset in this match. And when we found out this match was happening, I remember talking to Cisco about this could open doors for us with AAA. If we did well, maybe they would bring us in for like a big show and kind of let us do our thing there, in a pay-per-view for them. So, and we were excited for that. Aerostar was kind of had his boo-boo face on a little bit. No, not Aerostar. I'm sorry. Not Argenis, Aerostar, and who was the other guy?
Give me 1 second here. I believe
Sorry.
it was Superfly.
Superfly, yeah. He really had like a boo-boo face on because I think he had heard that he was gonna like lose his mask and didn't really want to do that. So he ended up losing his mask in Lucha Underground. I don't know. I don't think it affected him. I'm not sure if he did it in Mexico as well. I think he did. But anyways, I remember he was a little difficult to get on board with with the match style. I think he felt like maybe we were trying to cut his legs off and not let him do a lot of his stuff. But we ended up getting everybody to do all of their stuff because I mean we don't have stuff, right? The crew, like the whole idea was we did a big cutoff. That was kind of a highlight for us for the heat, and then the heat itself is where we were going to get over, and kind of just bringing up the false finishes to the finish. So the struggle was in the back, like trying to piece this together. I remember talking to Chavo about it because I kept telling him, these guys are just going to want to do random stuff for no reason. And he kept telling me, well, it's your job to keep them in check and keep it moving along, and it's for American television. Just keep telling them that. And I'm like, all right, well, like then everyone gets the little, I'm mad face on, and I think that the match didn't build, but it did. It just kind of like kept getting hotter and hotter, which was the idea, But I remember Dorian Pena and his family. They were there for this event. They would come in periodically, and they had like a little intermission break or whatever, and then we were starting with our match. And I remember Dorian was in the back with his family, and he started like kind of making his way towards the seating area. And I said, "Hey, are you gonna watch this match?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's why we're here, to check it out. Like this is huge." And I just kind of was blown away by it, like I was like, "Oh," like I was under the impression
he meant by that,
What's that?
Were you kind of wondering what he meant by, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like I was really taken back because I knew what I could try to make it mean for me, and Cisco, really like what we wanted it to be. So I was pretty excited over it, but going back to like piecing it together earlier on in the day, it was like we had to have a translator, obviously, and it was getting a little bit out of hand in the beginning because the luchadors kind of just like, like took it over. They just kind of flooded everybody with, "Oh, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this," and then I was like, "Okay, like where are you going to do that?" So trying to piece everything together, I'm thinking like, no, we can't, have a stabbing after a shooting. Like let's try to make this all make sense, And then they were like, "Well, I want to do it here. I want to do it," and I'm like, after a while, I just said, "All right, like, I'm taking this thing over." I was like, "Here's what we're gonna do," and and then I gave each person something. Then you do something here, and then you do something here, and it was kind of like they didn't like that was happening. I think they really thought they were just gonna go in there and use us as bases and get all their shit in,
Right.
and then we were gonna go home with some sort of wonky finish where like it was like boop 1 2 3 oh darn
Fault one.
yeah. And so I really took the reins there after talking to Chavo about it a little bit, and I felt more confident, like, okay, well, he'll have my back because they'll go to him and complain and he'll say, well, that doesn't really make sense, because he was big on obviously things making sense for TV. So that was a real struggle. Superfly just didn't seem like on board with it, and I just kept thinking, like, I kept looking at him like in his eyes, like, "You got it? Are we good?" Because if you were gonna have a problem, you know what I mean? Don't go to the locker room and talk a bunch of shit. and then come out and like half-ass it in the ring with me, you know, because and then in my mind I was thinking already like I'll scratch all this shit and I won't let him do anything. Like I'll keep him down on the mat, you know, until we go to what we need to go to, you know. So I was already thinking about kind of fucking his day up, and because he was just like very like with everything, you know. The rest of us were like on the edge of our seats, you know. This, you know, we had some time, we were excited. Everyone else seemed to be on board once we got things going. Aerostar is the easiest one to work with. Like he wants some highlight reel type shit, and if you just put it in the right spot, he's just good sitting there taking it, you know, like let's go, you know. And Argenis was, I think he's Mystico's cousin. So he was at a point in his career where he wanted to have some sort of breakout moment as well, you know. I think from my understanding, he was getting some heat in Mexico of kind of just being like, oh, he's here because he's Mystico's cousin type thing, you know.
Right.
And he definitely looked at that match like, hey, I can do cool shit too. Like, you know, I'm going to be able to showcase what he can do. So, so we got like a big, I remember giving Superfly like a big moonsault in the very beginning, like top rope to the floor in the very beginning. And that started to kind of change his attitude a little bit, you know. And then we had some, I think him and I did some stuff at the end. I made sure that I was doing stuff with him because I didn't want him to feel like, because I was saying no the most to their ideas, I wanted him to be like, I'm still here for you. You know, you're going to get the flashy shit in, not me. Like, I don't care, you know? So yeah, so we went into making the match. It was a little bit rough in the beginning, but once we kind of laid it out, you know, everything was good. I remember we were like in the back and we knew we were on deck soon. And then we all got together one more round. And that was like the first point, like right before we got split up to the entrances, was the first point where I realized, okay, they're on board, because they were in gear, they were ready to go. And I remember thinking like, that was the first time I saw like Superfly being kind of like excited, you know. So I don't know if maybe guys in the back talked to him or what, or maybe he just finally put it all together and it made sense to him. I'm not sure. I didn't really talk to him much before or after. So, you know, we just kind of went out and did what we needed to do. But it's by far one of my favorite matches of all time. Like, because everything that I had laid out in my head, it just was like there, you know. It was just like it was almost too easy, right? Like as it's unfolding, I was like, okay, cool, like this is all working. That match is probably like top 5 of my matches I've ever had, just because of how perfectly it went. And I knew that at the beginning this was going to be difficult to do, and then when it came off perfectly, it was like, you know, I just felt really accomplished. Like I did that. Like, you know, like we all did it, but I kind of orchestrated it and put it all together, because I was just telling guys, no, not here. Like, you know, this is where we'll do this, then this, you know, then this, you know. And I was kind of like, you know, really directing traffic like a quarterback, you know, just kind of like putting it together. So,
I mean, that's simpler to do, you know, in a singles match, yeah, or a regular tag match, but in a 6-man tag or a trios match,
yeah,
you know, you've got 5 other egos there at play that you're trying to rein in and, you know, get on board with what your thought of this match should look like. And that can be a super difficult task. Out of the 3 guys on the other team here, out of Superfly, Argenis, and Aerostar, I mean, I know you're not like styled, but who do you think was the most like-minded as you from the like, who, like, you know, when you're, you know, sometimes you can be putting something together and like as something's about to come out of your mouth, the other guy says it and it's like, okay, you know, like same page here, we're on the same page. And I know you're wrestling and these guys are doing grandiose lucha. So it's, there was probably another point where you were about to be like, and then I'll cock back, and the other guy was like, and do a Hurricane Rana. Like, I know you guys weren't thinking the same shit, but who seemed like they were most in tune with what you were trying to put together?
I don't think any of those three were in tuned. I think that Aerostar was the easiest to get on board because they just don't understand our psychology at all. They think that, see, the thing with the AAA guys, it always was an uphill battle with them in the locker room all 4 years. I think by the third year they kind of understood a little bit more, because I'm not going to say that they didn't learn, they didn't start to get it down, because they eventually did. But in that first year, I believe that they think Lucha Underground was created for them, and that could have a lot to do again with the coaching / dividing of the locker room that Vampiro and Conan were trying to do. They kept trying to tell the guys from Mexico, like, this is your shot to be big stars here in America, like, go out there and get it, and it's not like, I was ever against that. I thought we could all be big stars, I just needed everything to make sense that I was involved in, like a lot of people criticize Lucha Underground for the silliness and the outrageous stuff that happened, maybe with the vignettes and stuff. But my stuff, bell to bell, was, I had total control over, and I kept control over it, but we were still a television series, not a wrestling promotion. And a lot of people, all the wrestling fans just didn't want to hear that noise. You know what I mean? They put the Lucha Underground title next to the TNA title as far as value, and it's like that's not really a thing. Like, it isn't. And so at least bell to bell, I could control what I was doing, and that went for even for the dark matches. Like, you kind of get direction for dark matches. Hey, let's see what this guy can do. So you're just going to go in there and let him do his stuff at some point. But when is that point that makes sense in the match, right? Like, not everybody gets that, And then a lot of people that do, like, we had guys try out, and get in there and shit the bed, and it turned into like, oh, well, I was trying to get all my stuff in, and so and so said just do your shit, and and that was always like they're out, their excuse, So for the most part, Aerostar was just kind of really like going with the flow, because he's such a small guy. He knew that he needed us more than we needed him, so we needed to base him and keep him safe, and basically learn how to take all his stuff good. And all those guys were down for doing all their stuff, and we were working with them, we all again, that last meetup before we split up to our entrances was the most on board we had been all day long. And it was again, a little bit of a relief, because I was like, okay, maybe these guys, the thing that bothered me was they had their own locker room, right? So they would just go in there, and that they were just talking shit about whatever they didn't like, because I had Ricky Marvin, who came in later into season 2, like, he was one of my best friends, and I remember him coming up to me and saying, guys like Davari and Big Rick and all the Lucha guys were like, oh, they're just lazy, they don't want to do anything. And Ricky Marvin, was a big star in Japan. He was like, no, he goes, they just have good psychology, like that's not being lazy. They just know what they're doing out there, And I remember him saying, like, a lot of the guys were talking a lot of shit, like, oh, they just don't want to do nothing here, like this, And then later on, Rey Horace, who's Rey Mysterio's, I think, nephew, he came in and he always wanted a singles match with me. And he was like, I can wrestle too. I can wrestle too. Like, I'm a good wrestler. Like, he did amateur wrestling, you know? So he wanted to like have a match just to show everybody, like, I can go with Ricky. I can go with Ricky, you know?
Yeah.
And we never got that opportunity, but you know, I believe that it changed as time went on, but that first season, it was a bit rough going.
Now, you mentioned, something. Well, before we get to that, so like, basically, you could go to the ring in this situation and then not really know if these guys are on board until the bell rings.
Right.
Did you face any situations like that during Lucha Underground?
No, not really. I remember I mean, it's a match I'm sure we'll talk about much later, but I did a match with like Sexy Star when I was under the mask, you know, and basically the mask didn't mean that character didn't mean anything, you know. But I remember like Sexy was like stiffing the shit out of me and just, you know, she wasn't going along with what we had said fully, you know, she wasn't like shooting or anything, but it was one of those things where she's like, I'm a strong woman. I'm going to do everything, you know? And I was just kind of taking some stuff and I was just like, at this point, I'm just waiting for Joey to come in, you know? So I was just kind of going along with the flow and I thought, whatever, you know, nobody liked the match. I remember, I mean, sure, we'll get into it, but not necessarily. I think because a big thing that helped everybody was the crowd, you know? By this time, I think this is episode 12 actually. I think that the crowd was the crowd that would stay there, that would always be there. It was a huge wrestling fans, you know, were coming from all over at this point to see what this Lucha Underground was all about.
You mentioned Chavo. You said, if something comes up, you can just go to Chavo. Not just to you, but also to you, but to the whole production there. How important was Chavo to this whole thing going?
Man, Chavo was literally like the glue that kind of kept everything together. Really, because first off, that's the one guy you're not gonna question in the back. He's in a position of really overseeing our matches. He was like the lead agent, you know. So he reported back and he never took advantage of that. You know, he was never going to be like, no, don't do that. He just, you know, I mean, he yelled at me a couple times because I didn't get certain things in that he needed, you know, and he'd let you know that you fucked up, you know, and it was a learning situation, you know. But as far as the higher ups look to him for a lot of advice and you know, it carried a lot of weight if Chavo said your name in high regards, you know. So you were looked at differently from everybody, you know, if Chavo was like, no, he's good, he's good. He was always, you know, putting guys over, but you know, he always wanted the best product for the American audience. He knew that that's what was important. So being able to have Chavo there and kind of like directing the ship all the way around was so crucial. Like, who knows what Lucha Underground could have looked like if maybe like Vampiro was in that position. You know, it could have been bloodier and uglier than it really was. So,
was there ever a time where Chavo or anybody else, office-wise, had to like put out the Vampiro Conan fire backstage, or kind of maybe just you know level out the ground there? Like, was it ever getting to a point where it was hindering what you guys were trying to do?
Not really. I mean, the whole situation with Conan and me and Hernandez and stuff, that right there proves like Lucha Underground wasn't having any of it, because once word got out, that was it. At the end of the season, they wrote off Conan and he was done. So not really. I think a lot of us too kind of looked at it like the American guys that knew the history between Conan and Vampiro. We kind of knew what they were doing. At least I did. I mean, and then I think the other guys that weren't involved in it, they didn't know, or they weren't important enough to know, so they didn't feel it. So it was what it was, and nobody really had to step in. So no, nobody had to.
Is there any chance that these guys were working an angle trying to get on TV?
Yeah, for sure. That was the whole thing with Vampiro and Pentagon, right? So they did that big match at the end of season 1, I think?
I think so.
Like, I remember Vampiro talking to DJ, like right in front of, like I was talking with DJ, and Vampiro just kind of like, boom, just kind of shot in and like, I got this idea, and he's just pitching an angle with him and Penta, right? And I'm looking at DJ, and DJ's kind of nodding his head like, yeah. And then Vampiro looks at me and he's like, and then we all know what has to happen, right, brother? And I'm like, right, brother. Like, he's like the Hulk Hogan of Mexico or something, he's like, oh, the NWO train, I'm gonna get some of that, So he just kind of hopped up on the most over guy by the end of the season 1. He attached himself to Penta. So I don't know if Conan was planning on getting much. He kind of had an on-air character already. Obviously, we needed that, from him. But I think that if Conan would have stuck around, it eventually would have come to like half the guys on one side, half the guys on the other on TV as well. So.
All right, and now, we don't see you guys in a match here for like the next 2 episodes, but I do see a caption that says, where does it say? Where'd it go? I'm an idiot. Tensions rise when a new luchador is welcome into Cueto's temple. The newcomer promises that he will reign supreme. When does Del Rio come in here?
Ooh, good question. I am not 100% sure. Midway through season 1.
So I think we're gearing up for that, because then a few episodes from now, well, we'll get there in a couple of minutes. So we see that I got a caption here. It says, Big Rick seeks revenge. At this point, and this next episode has Mil Muertes versus Chavo. It's got Ivelisse versus Angelico, Tejano versus Superfly, and then it's a no-holds-barred trios match where it's you, Cisco, and Bell against Pimpy, Sexy Star, and Mascaria Sagrada. So, going into this, are you guys still with Big Rick?
I don't think so. When he seeks revenge, I think that's after the stabbing of his eye.
Right.
Like when we put the cigarette out on his eye. So I remember this match was to get rid of Pimpy and Sagrada.
Right.
To like give them some time off TV. So this was like the beatdown basically match. It was kind of just a squash, really. They hit the ring, we just start fighting, and they were just kind of written off. Those two, at least, were written off TV for a little bit, because the writers were like, we're running out of ideas to do with these two characters, so we're gonna give them a break and then bring them back as a surprise later.
I have a feeling that maybe Sexy Star told you right before this match that she is a strong woman.
She was a very strong woman, she'll tell
She was
you.
a very strong woman. After that match, all the stuff with the kendo stick and everything, she comes in the locker room. She's cool as a cucumber. Everything all good. High
Yeah,
five around, brother.
yeah, for the most part, you know, everyone. I mean, Pimpy and them, they they knew what we were gonna do. This was the design of the match, so everybody did business. Sexy knew that she was still gonna be there, and it wasn't for her so much. So yeah, it was all right. I don't know, like, I guess for me it was a little. This experience could have been way different, but everybody respected me in the locker room. Like I remember one of the shows, Rocky showed up just to hang out and visit, and we didn't know this at the time, but Phoenix and Pentagon, they came up. Me and Rocky were talking in the back, and Phoenix and Pentagon came over and said, we were selling masks in Arena Mexico outside on the sidewalks when you guys were wrestling in Arena Mexico. And that was the first time Rocky had met Phoenix, and his eyes lit up and he was like, oh my God, I remember you. And he goes, yeah. He goes, we talked many times outside. And he was like, yeah. He goes, and he looked at me and he's like, you don't remember them? And I was like, nah, like, I was like, my head was in a different area, a different space then. But he was like, no, I remember. And it's true. Like they remember us getting dropped off, like in the back, and like kind of like seeing us all the time, and going to practice, because you go to practice at Arena Mexico. So we were there like 3 or 4 times during the week, but they remember us being out there. But no. What was the question exactly?
Oh Jesus, I don't even remember what I asked you. About if Sexy Star, everybody was all high fives after the match there, right? Isn't that where we were? Are you frozen? Excellent. This is going to give me a good opportunity to edit out us not knowing what we're talking about. Whoa! What the fuck just happened here?
I told you it's thunderstorms here.
Yeah, all right, good. We'll do some editing. I have no idea what we were talking about. We just got off on a tangent on Pentagon.
Yeah. But yeah, that was that. So
So that must have. Oh, this is going to be where we jump back in. So that must have made that kind of thing make you feel old, or make you feel like well traveled and well respected, or
no, it I think we all just kind of search for that type of respect, right? When we're in the locker room, I think when we all start wrestling, we just want to be the guy that's in the main event, and then we realize that guy has to wait around. When you are that main event, then you realize now you're just waiting around for the entire show to end, and then now you don't want to be the main event. Right. But no, I mean that's what I've always looked for, was just respect from the guys in the locker room. That was it, I just wanted not only to feel like I belonged, but like I had some sort of value of some kind, so that helped a lot. Yeah. But oh no, yeah. So for me, I didn't have those types of issues. There was other people that I know got into arguments and shouting matches about what to do, what not to do in the match, because they didn't have that respect in the locker room. So,
right. So then we go another couple of episodes, right? You guys have that trios match on episode 15. And then on episode 17, right, we get Tejano beating Alberto El Patron by disqualification. So I want to talk a little bit now and if this conversation carries us to the end, then so be it. Alberto El Patron, Alberto Del Rio. When do you guys find out he's coming in? Is this one of the things where nobody knows until he shows up? What were people's feelings? Obviously, he was going to be working at the top of the card for, what could be assumed at the time was going to be until the end of, Lucha Underground. And I think at this point, he may or may not be the AAA Mega Champion. So, lay it on me. You start hearing that Alberto is coming in. Do you hear it? Or it just happened?
Yeah, well, we had heard that he was in talks with them, but nobody knew for sure when until the day of. Then, obviously it leaked out in the back that he was supposed to arrive there. So what they did was, I guess maybe one night they had like a photo shoot with him where he's like sitting. I think they had him in the locker room or in the gym, in the makeshift gym that they had for us, kind of just sitting in a suit, smiling, and that he was coming in. And then I remember Melissa, the ring announcer, she had like a segment on her cards that said like interview. That's all it said. Like it, just, and then she was kind of like showing everybody. So we were like, okay, so this is it, that he was coming. So I remember we went to, I think me and Cholo at least, we went down to the floor where the floor entrance was. And we were just there because there was like a long, uncomfortable break where Melissa was just standing in the ring and they didn't cue her up yet. So we're just down there and the fans are like sitting there, like just kind of looking around. Well, what happened is Lucha Underground's Twitter or whatever released that picture, like saying that he's here or something like that. So they did that first, and no one had their phones. They weren't allowed to have phones in the arena, so no one really knew. And then she went, and then they gave her another card and announced his name or whatever. So she went right to it, and then he came out, and then it was like an explosion in that building. So I had to be on the floor for that one.
So the place goes apeshit, right?
Yeah.
And he does what? He does gets in the ring, does a promo.
Yeah, I think that was just like a promo. I'm not even sure if that aired on TV, to be honest with you. But yeah, that was his like arrival, thing, and the promo for him to announce that he's in Lucha Underground now.
All right, so he does that promo. He leads the ring.
Yeah.
Coming to the back, does he, to sit around, talk to all the boys? Does he get involved? Does he act like he's? Because I'm trying to think. This is what end of 2014, early 2015, maybe.
Yes.
And man, some weird shit is going on at this time in the world of Alberto Del Rio, right? Yeah. So, what's his vibe?
I mean, he seemed cool, right? Like on his first couple of times in, so he comes to the back, saying hi to everybody. Half the guys he knows from AAA already. So it was a fun, exciting time, in the back. Like, everyone's excited, right? Like here's like finally like a mainstream star. Not that Chavo wasn't, but you know what I mean? Like more of a
wasn't already a multi-time WWE champion.
Right, exactly. Like this is like almost like we got one from WWE type thing, Mm-hmm. So it was a great fit for the brand, honestly, the recognition that he brings, everything. It was kind of like a perfect fit. So the first couple times in, he was great, I never had any problems with him because I did a bunch of darks when he had just got to WWE the first time, and when I was in Pennsylvania, so he knew me already, like, or at least let me rephrase that. He remembered that I was a wrestler and that he had seen me. Because
Yeah.
the first thing he did when he saw me was he gave me like this big hug, and we had talked at Wilkes-Barre, I think, in the arena one time. He was just kind of like wishing me luck or whatever with WWE. You know, he goes, "What are you here for?" And I said, "You know, a dark, hopefully, like to get looked at." I said, "Maybe they're gonna send me to NXT for a tryout," you know. And he's like, "Oh, brother, I'm so happy. Like, you know, it'll be great to have you." You know, said all the nice guy stuff. But he remembered me, and it was nice. He was cool, you know, with me. You know, once you get to a little bit more of his inner circle, then you're gonna have different various opinions on him. You know.
Right. When did the wheels come off the Alberto Del Rio Lucha Underground relationship?
What do you mean? Like in the back, or when he finally left?
Give it to me completely in the back, because
Mhm.
I know he was not there for the second season, correct?
No.
So he came in and he did, because at this point, I'm looking at what is listed as his first match with Tejano, and that's episode 20.
Right.
So you guys got this guy basically for a handful of weeks here.
Well, we had 40 episodes for the first season.
Right. Okay.
So
You got it for half the season.
Yeah, half the season, right. So that was a big deal for us, right? I mean,
yeah, it's huge.
Brand new show, and we're getting Del Rio, like timing is everything type thing. Yeah, so at least in
the thunder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, I'd be moving.
No, that's why the lights are flickering, because it's like torrential downpour right now. It's crazy. So in the back, at least, he was always cool with me. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of interaction with me and him until I think we did some sort of like bump and feed for him at some point. Like we tried to run interference on something, and he came in and cleaned house. You know.
Right.
There just wasn't a whole lot for me to really say, because he would show up late, like much later than everybody else. And then he was kind of like, once he was done, he was kind of like out, like he was gone. I remember seeing him pull up to the hotel a couple of times in like a Corvette or something, and like wait for a couple of the guys that he wanted to hang out with or whatever. Like they'd all kind of like, they had like cars behind them and stuff. Like everybody was just kind of following them to go drink or whatever, hang out and party. But I mean, I didn't ever have an issue with him. I know a lot of guys were like, "Oh, he's got a big head. He doesn't want to get dressed with everybody in the locker room," because he would go into one of the offices to go get dressed, you know. So that was kind of like a dickhead move, right? Like you can't even get dressed next to the boys.
You don't want to show the boys that you're one of the boys.
Yeah, so that was annoying, because he would go into an office and then he would just come out in his gear, go to the ring. Like he had to go into his locker room to talk over the match or whatever, you know. So in that way, it was a little annoying, you know. But he was a big star, and you know, it wasn't terrible for me. I never took offense to it, right? I'm like, well, you know, when you're at that level, I guess you can make up your own mind how you want to be perceived, right? Like, so I didn't, you know, I didn't give two shits about it. When me and Cholo had to go in there and figure out what we wanted to do, he was like, "Come on, bro, come here." So we went in, and you know, he goes, had an idea, you know, wanted to run it by you guys for like a bump and feed, and we're just like, yeah, man, whatever. That's what we're here for, you know. So we had a little beat down, I think, on somebody, and he came in and, you know, kind of clean house, and that was it, you know, and it was fine, you know. We didn't have to work with them a whole lot. So, but then again, like my style of wrestling kind of fits with everybody, so
right.
You know, so it didn't really matter. But he was always cool with me. I'm not sure exactly how long. Obviously, I didn't talk to him about it, but I didn't know how long he was supposed to be there for. So he finished up towards the end of the tapings, and then when he showed up, I don't know if you remember when he showed up in Staples Center was when he came back.
Right.
With like when he came back with Dutch Mantel, but I knew it was heading in that direction because he was getting significantly more and more jacked every week. We would see him, and more tanned, So I made the joke. I was like, he's got a good tan, brother. He's going back. He's going back to New York. And then he ironically made his return in L.A. So there was all kinds of like rumors, like, oh, he was here to talk.
You guys just got him over for 20 weeks.
Yeah, like he was. The rumors were he was negotiating with Lucha Underground and AAA in LA, and then he just drove across the street to the Staples Center and was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go to WWE now. Or something to that effect. Like it doesn't exactly work that way, but I remember saying something on Twitter like, like one person's departure doesn't mean the demise of an entire company or something, because I remember Meltzer saying something like, oh, this makes Lucha Underground look worse than what they already do. This is terrible. And I'm thinking like, dude, he made a lot of money in 20 weeks. Like I'm sure, he's grateful for what both companies did, because he was the mega champion when he signed with WWE. I think that was the big heat, really, was obviously with them, because I don't think Tejano ever got his win back. So
yeah, well, he defeated Tejano. Oh, Tejano beat him here by disqualification, right?
Yeah.
Then the very next episode, actually, the very next episode was what I believe to be Lucha Underground's first steel cage match, and that was Johnny Mundo and King Cuerno. Does anything from that stick out to you?
No, I mean, I watched it from the crowd a little bit just because I wanted to see how the crowd was reacting to a cage, and all the crazy stuff they were going to do. Those guys are really good. Cuerno's Escobar in WWE.
Right.
So he kind of already had that American style. Like, he spoke or speaks English really, really well. His dad is the commission in Mexico City, Fantasma. And so I think he kind of always had that idea, like I have wrestling blood. I'm supposed to go to WWE and be a big star too. So he had the style down, the American storytelling, and then had, some cool spots that he did. So no, I mean, that was just like another crazy night for us.
And then the very next week, we've got Lucha Underground's first coffin match, Phoenix beating Mil Muertes, but you might also recognize this as the night that Big Rick defeats the Crew in a 3-on-1 no disqualification elimination match. Talk to us about that one.
Well, that was the one, like, B-Boy kept telling Rick to do something to do something so big for his elimination, that he offered to take a spine buster on Thumbtacks, and that was the night, like I said, Big Rick, where I learned that you're not that important type line, because he just, like, here's the thing, right? I remember the conversation. We were at catering, so we're in line getting food, and B-Boy's trying to sell Big Rick like all day long, like all the crazy stuff that he wanted to do. Like he wanted to go through a table or through a bunch of tables. And then it turned into, well, we'll just get some thumbtacks, and then finally, like, I remember we make our way back to the locker room, and he's just openly laughing in B-Boy's face, and he just tells him, "You're just not that important," And I remember him looking defeated, like his whole demeanor changed from, "Oh, I had this great idea," to, "Oh, you're right. Like, I guess I'm not." And it was just like, it was like we wanted to laugh, like the heat, right, was really with Cisco because he's the one that did it. you know. So he was going to be the last one eliminated, you know. And for me, right, I'm like, I don't care, whatever you want to do, you know, like this is your match, you know, we're here for you, you know. Do you have an idea of a bigger bump? I don't recall what we did. You know, it may have been just like a power slam or something, you know.
I get paid the same whether you throw me through 3 tables or you roll me up. So
That was my mindset, you know. And the story of him finally getting to Cisco was the moment, you know. So if I could cause a hiccup, or me and Cisco as a team could work together to get over on him for a second, then I'm basically just part of the comeback, right? Like boom, 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 1, 2, 3, boom. Then it's like Cisco and him. That was the moment, right? So if you're not a mark for yourself, you would understand that you create that type of moment in that match. It's called storytelling, you know. And then that was it. But yeah, so I remember that match being short and sweet, and just a lot of fun, and it was funny to put together, because that was like the first time I think Benny realized, like, I'm not really a part of this. This team is a 2-man team, and even though it's a trios, right?
I was doing some research today. I'm fascinated with B-Boy.
Oh no. Okay.
Bale has become one of my guilty pleasures in life. And I don't even watch him work, just reading about him, because his Wikipedia page, right, is very, very, very detail oriented.
Okay.
It's got just about every match written down with somebody who's got a name for themselves on TV, right? And you know, these things are open edit shit. Anybody can write on this stuff.
Yeah, of course.
It doesn't have very much about his Lucha Underground run. And then I Googled, when did B-Boy get killed in Lucha Underground? Okay. And I got back a return from 2017 from Dirt Sheets. So they killed him in season 1,
Yes.
2015, right?
Yes.
And then they stopped using him then.
Yes. Yes, that wasn't the original plan, to stop using him, but yes, he was done.
He did not get a release until May of 2017.
Right.
So he literally just sat.
Yes.
In that contract.
Right.
Not getting paid because he's not being used, I'd imagine, right?
Correct.
It took them 2 years after that to release him, which I find hysterical. He probably called one day and was like, "Hey, can I get released?" And they were like, "Oh, we thought we did that a year and a half ago." So that just tickles me.
Or who are you again?
Right. Okay.
Well, I mean, there's stuff to that. So when we did the angle where we killed him, when we fed him to Matanza,
face first.
Yes, we did not get that script until, so we shot that angle at 2:30 in the morning. Okay, like when I say we were there all day, all night, like, and this was like on a fucking Wednesday or some shit, right? So they flew me in early. I remember it was that night when I landed, which is I never did scenes that late. They usually get me in the day before my scene is shot, and then I would go to the building. But I remember texting Cholo when I had like a layover somewhere, and I said, "Do you know what we're doing tonight? I just got like an email saying that you'll shoot late at night." And he said, "No, they haven't sent the script yet, but I think it's where we're getting rid of Benny." So I said, does he know? Because Cholo would talk to him all the time because they were both California guys, but he was actual friends with Cholo, and he knew that I never liked him since the first day I met him in 2001. I didn't care for him, but so he's like, no, but he keeps asking me like, bro, what are we doing? What is this thing? And blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, I don't know. Text Ricky, like maybe he knows. And, he never texted me. So I remember when I got in, I landed or whatever, and then we get the script. Well, the script is, I don't know, like they email you the whole thing, and I'm like, I'm not gonna read this shit. I don't care. Like, so I would never pre-read the scripts, until I got to the building, and then they would hand me the paper, and I just flip through it, and the highlighted ones, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm here. Boom, 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 got it. I wasn't doing any long, monologue anything. So, what's that?
You weren't doing any long-winded soliloquies?
Yeah, exactly. So, so I remember we get there and they tell us what to wear, like wardrobes, like, hey, here's some hoodies, you're doing stuff like get in your black gear, I guess they would say stuff like that, like what color we were supposed to have. So I was like, all right. We get there like maybe 8 p.m. and we don't shoot till like 2:30. So I know conveniently enough, DJ's gone, right? So we're kind of just in the building, and it's really a skeleton crew of people because they're shooting stuff in a similar area. So the lighting's already set up like Matanza's cage and the back area. So that was kind of like, hey, we're shooting this stuff late at night. So anyways, we get to the back, we get all geared up, and he's asking a million questions like, what does this mean for me? What are they doing with me? Do you guys know anything? And we're just like, oh, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. You got to talk to DJ. Well, he's not answering his phone. He didn't text me back, and I was like, oh, I don't know what to tell you. But we knew that.
Well, it's 3:00 in the morning. He wrote a script where you get murdered and then from the building. He ain't answering your call.
Right. Correct. So it's just like, it's what you would imagine it is with him, a million questions, why. So that scene happens, we go back, he's asking, I don't know what was talked about with him and DJ. I do know that once they wrote him off from that, they offered him to be so Mil Muertes comes back after the coffin match with Phoenix. Right. He comes back stronger, with a darker gimmick, similar to what they did with Drago later. And then he has, I don't know if you ever saw like the masked guys with him.
Right.
So they offered him one of those like characters, like a masked character to be with Mil Muertes. And those guys ended up winning the trios belts at Ultima Lucha 1, so they offered him a job, like to keep his job and to keep getting paid, in a champion's role, which he did. He told them no. Apparently, like after that scene, he just was never around. So I had heard through Cholo that he had said like, oh, they want me to be a masked character with Mil Muertes, and I don't want to do that. And he was like, all right, like he goes, so I'm pitching ideas where I come back and we're like, you were mutilated, like you were eaten by a monster, like you can't come back, He just wasn't on board with anything like that and didn't understand it. He was just too stupid. But that was like the end of that. And then as far as like the release goes, is apparently they kept contacting him with stuff that he could do on the show, different characters. Obviously, it was going to be a masked character, and they still wanted to use him. So that's why they never released him, because they would come up with ideas for him. Hey, we can use you in this role.
He would say no.
Yeah, and he would tell him no because he wanted to be himself. So that's why it's not like they held him hostage because he was that valuable. He didn't have no other options. He wasn't going anywhere else. TNA wasn't going to touch him. it wasn't like he had options to go anywhere. So despite what he would write through social media, he wasn't being held hostage. They kept offering him stuff to do to get paid, and he said no. So he's an idiot.
He's an idiot.
The
Well,
thing about it was like finally when Cisco died in like season 3 or whatever it was, like he did the rabbit tribe thing, and he had like the rabbit with the mohawk and he was like the masked character, and I think a lot of local people knew that it was him, but it was a cool gimmick, with Karrion Kross and Paul London, and I mean those guys made it work, like they had awesome matches and they were hilarious, like to watch, because they would do like a dance, like a hypnotizing, like they were all tripping on acid and stuff. And the vignettes were insane, but yeah, man, like you're just being a mark for yourself if you're sitting at home on Twitter talking shit like, oh, they don't want to release me. I remember he wrote something like he was going to go back to Ring of Honor or something. Like, yeah, man, they just
tweet today that he was going to go someplace and make an impact, or maybe someplace with Honor, or something more global, because Global Force Wrestling was a thing at the time also.
Correct. Yeah. So I remember that.
Any of those things.
Yeah, and it was just, I mean, he just never got it. That's why I've known him like my whole career. Like, I never liked him at all because you could tell he was one of those guys, just listening to him in the back. I remember when the first time he went to Japan, he had to like pay for his own flight, and he had to, like, it was for like some dirt indie promotion out there. Well, I remember it was me, Joe, Rocky, Brian, some Ring of Honor show we were at. Well, he showed up because he was living in Philadelphia at the time. And he shows up and he was like, yeah, the circle's complete. I'm going to Japan. And I remember Joe just laughing at him and then walking away, and then, so he drops the bomb and now we got to clean this mess up. Right. So of course, Rocky, being the nice guy that he is, and Brian, they're like, oh yeah, that's awesome. Good for you, bro. And I'm looking at him like, what the fuck? Like, are you like, what? Like, and it was just like, he's just one of those, it was just stupid.
Well, this certainly wasn't stupid. I think this is a good place to stop next for right now. And then for next week, I want to start off a little bit with the Alberto Patron and Tejano bull rope match. Cool. And then I want to get into we're going to be looking someplace here at you guys in a trios match, I believe, with a no DQ trios match with Son of Havoc, Evilise, and Angelico, and I got a lot of questions about that one.
That'll be good, yeah.
I think this is a good place to stop and can continue for next week. Real quick, Rick, I know we're not really doing it so much anymore, but I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts on the John Cena 2025 retirement tour. How much money do you think it makes? And if you've got any memories of a young John Cena in Southern California flying his trade.
What's funny is with, living in a TikTok world or whatever, Reyes is familiar with wrestlers because of that, right? So he just knows that John Cena is John Cena, and doesn't quite grasp that Daddy helped train John and
beat up John Cena.
Yeah, and Daddy out wrestled John Cena a number of times in Huntington Beach's LA Boxing Club, where we used to practice for UPW. But I just thought, man, like if you need the blueprint of being a successful company, like WWE is it, right? Like especially right now. Think about the fact that this guy, he just sold out any major venue and pay-per-view that WWE is going to have in the next 12 months by himself.
Yep.
I mean, it is what it is. Like the generation before us that you know of fans are all going to come out worldwide to say goodbyes, right? So like everything is his last, right? Rumble, Chamber, Mania. I think WWE will make this send off, this WrestleMania send off, bigger than Rick's on purpose, for obvious reasons they should, because they wouldn't be where they're at if it weren't for John, you know, and rightfully so. And I'm excited for next year because I think, like, as a fan, you know, when you watch any of those pay-per-views, every match he has is going to be a sellout, period. And I'm real curious if they're going to are they going to do newer guys against him, or are we going to relive some like Punk and Orton and AJ type of feuds? You know, and I mean, they're breaking records now and they don't have them. They're going to destroy records. So where is WrestleMania? Is this the Vegas one this year?
Yes.
Man, if they do a double thing like they did with Roman and them, like a tag and then a singles, they're going to shatter the record, and then it'll hold
both nights.
I was going to say it'll hold for 24 hours and then it'll be done the next night. I don't know. Business wise, it's exciting because I've always been interested in that end of it. So when you're reading these numbers and these gates, it's going to be, they just found a way to top themselves for next year. That's all they did, you know, is what they did. So.
All right. Well, that's it. I'm going to run the gimmick for Ricky Reyes, Kevin Fulton, and for Henry snoring in my ear for the last 45 minutes. This has been Podfluxxx, episode 63. We'll catch you motherfluxers later.